Oh, you caught me reading my favorite book. With version 1.2 out, there is a new main story and a lot of new files, which means there is a lot to unpack here. Which is why I'm going to tell y'all everything that I learned when I read everything in 1.2. Between 55 archivable files, all the one-time ones, the main story, and the side quests, once again, a thank you to Warframe Wiki, because without which I would refuse to do this. Now, of all the patches, 1.2 feels the most like, OMG, is that an Arknights reference? Out of all of them. And to talk about that, we need to talk about this guy. Now, Ardashir needs no introduction, as he is the most interesting antagonistic element of Endfield by far. And not only is he a vague poster, but also a D1 yearner as well. Just look at this pose, man. One of the revelations we got in 1.2 is a general scale for his age. He himself said that he used to have the title of Pasha. If you don't know, that's a title from the nation of Sargon back on Terra. Now, I saw some people saying that Pasha means king, but that is not true. According to the Terra lore book, a Pasha is the governor of a province, as in, Ardashir would report directly to the king when managing a territory. Of course, that's only secondhand information. I don't own a Terra lore book because I am a dirty, dirty poor. If you try and ship a hypergriff product to the US, you get hit by a $100 tariff surcharge. Yippee! Now, Ardashir mentions the Sargonian Empire, which is different from the modern Sargon that you may know if you are an OG Arknights player. The Sargon Empire fell a while back. I'm actually not that familiar with Sargon lore. But there's a specific event that comes to mind when I try and date Ardashir. There occurred something called the Great Explosion of Year 15. For reference, in the main story of Arknights Global, it is currently year 1101. That great explosion involved a bloody battle between the Sargon Empire, the Kagon, and the mysterious Collapsals. The key event as to why I think this dates Ardashir is the destruction of the second Cosmic Gate. That's right, on Terra there were two Cosmic Gates. The one that Terra proper used to reach Talos 2 was the one in Sami, but there was a second one down in the south. Considering how much this guy likes to yap about Talos 2, I assume he had some involvement with that Cosmic Gate. And if that is true, we have a general idea for Ardashir's age. Now, the Great Explosion was at year 15. The main story of Global Arknights right now is at 1101. We can probably assume that we went through the Cosmic Gate a few years after the main story of Arknights. And then we've been on Talos 2 for 150 years. So add that all together and you have at least 1,236 years of this guy being alive. Bro's an unk! Honestly, Ardashir's kinda chill. Past the whole I'm gonna destroy all of Wuling thing. And who hasn't had that urge? Come on! In the new era of 1.2, if you talk to this kid, she talks about how Ardashir gave her rice cakes and told her a lot of stories. What a nice guy! Ardashir also vague posts his motivation finally. He's trying to find the exiles out in the Aether side. Now, we don't have a ton of information as to what the exiles even are, so it's tough to make an actual guess. I did see a few random theories here and there, like how the exiles has to do with the second Cosmic Gate down in Sargon. Or how, since the exiles are in a whole other dimension, maybe the Witch King is one of them. Again, not a lot of proof for any of this, so I don't really want to expand on those. But I do have my own personal theory. We know that Arcane was trapped with Ardashir when we were dealing with the Blight Tide. And when we recovered Arcane, she was passed out from exhaustion. But what if Arcane wasn't exhausted because she was fighting Ardashir the whole time, but because Ardashir was vague posting to her the whole time? It's in line with his character. Okay, enough of that. Next up, I want to talk about a theory that I'm slowly being bought into. That being that our administrator is straight up the doctor from OG Arknights. If you're at all interested in the minutiae of that theory, I would recommend Draknus' video on it. I'm not going to regurgitate everything that he said, but I do want to bring up one point that he made about the Aether side. Other than being a sick Minecraft mod, those that utilize this power tend to tap into their most primal forms. Seemingly, those who utilize the Aether side turn into the animals that they were based on before becoming humanoid. Best example you could see this is Ron Yi, and most recently Nefarith. Except not actually! You see, Nefarith is not a Lung, she's not a Draco, and she's not even a Kaelin. Nefarith is an Archosauria, a crocodile person, not a dragon like in her second form. And that means Nefarith is a LARPer! I see you for what you are. Now, Nefarith's boss description says, the Conqueror's inner perception of herself, which besides being the most blatant of LARP, it also suggests that Aetherside is a bit imagination-based, rather than strictly being about a primal form. Also, in the Avengers Assemble cutscene against Nefarith, is that not the assimilated universe? For my Enfielders, this is the abstract sea of knowledge inside of Originium. Although the rhombus is a triangle now. And it's damaged. Who knows what that means? Probably has something to do with how the original Arknights is gonna end. Speaking of the OG, the community has been abuzz about the 13th Sui Proxy. It is now hard confirmed in the 1.2 main story and several of the new files that the Fahrenheit proxy mentioned to influence HAS is not one of the original 12 proxies that we know of back on Terra, but this new 13th one. Yeah, so the current running theory is that she's an artificial creation of Nian, Shu, and Dusk, meaning she also has all three of their powers. And given that there's a lot of Dusk powers that we saw in the main story, I think there's a lot of evidence backing this up. Still, there's still 1.3. I'd rather not hard confirm anything until we actually get our hands on that story. Also, a new world building bit alongside this is the Yinglung Special Task Force. They make use of Yan Air technology and Fahrenheit artifacts. It's probably safe to say that Yinglung is supported by the 13th proxy. In the files, it's also mentioned that there are Imperial Guards on Talos too, of which their equivalent is Yan's most elite fighting force back on Terra. But across multiple files, they make it explicitly clear that the scale of Yan and Hass are very different. Different worlds, different situations, different philosophy. On Terra, the Yanese military exacts the will of the True Long in a multipolar world. But the military of Hass on Talos 2 is not so focused on that multipolar world, but instead on the fact that Angeloi is coming to destroy all of humanity. So you know, priorities! Also in 1.2, we get a bunch of new Nexus files about... We got a lot of new Nexus files about these factions. The stuff in these files are actually things that we already knew about, just condensed into one file each instead of having to scrounge through hundreds of different files. With the exception of Seš'qa. Like, what do you mean? What a lore bomb that one was. First revelation, Sami fell. For those of you who don't remember, Sami is a continent-sized Fahrenheit that decided to go through the Cosmic Gate, and fought on humanity's side during the First Angeloi War. Okay, admittedly, the concept of death is different for a Fahrenheit. Like, I think it's reasonable to say that it's possible for Sami to come back. Second revelation! You know that flying city thing about Seš'qa? It's actually not the Lifebone at all. For my Enfielders, the Lifebone is actually a flying Fahrenheit skeleton that the Sarkaz of Kazdel have. But in the case of Seš'qa, Sami Snowpriest actually gifted the Sarkaz a Fahrenheit Fang. That Fahrenheit being Sami. So the basis of the flying city of Seš'qa is the Fang of Sami. Also, in terms of the socio-economic conditions of the Sarkaz that we mentioned in the last lore video, this Seš'qa file has a bit of unreliable narrator again. Alright, that's the bulk of it all, but I do have one more piece of extremely important lore to give you. The Zoomers of Wuling are trying to make the Yinglung wear chubby lung-based equipment. And that's a video. I'm actually thinking about doing something like this for every single patch, but I'm kind of undecided right now, so tell me what you think. Also, the title is slight clickbait. I couldn't have read all of the files in 1.2 because there's an unreleased region coming out later in the patch. So the question is, will I follow up on this video with all those new files? Oh hell no! Buddy, I'm strapped for time. I got a lot of Stronghold Protocol I gotta play. Peace!